Hey guys, Kat here, and I am doing a video that has been highly requested over the last few months. It is the story of my sleeve, my tattoo sleeve, tattoos, whatever you want to call it. It's my first tattoo and I decided to get a sleeve. Interesting choice there, but I'm going to tell you all about it, what I learnt, how I got it, all those kind of good things. I feel like this is going to be a really long video, so what I'm going to do is put timestamps in the description box down below, so if you want to skip to any particular part, it'll be easier to do that because this is going to be long and rambly. I just feel it. I also asked on Instagram and Facebook what kind of questions you want or what topics you want me to cover, so I ended up making like a big double-sided page list of topics that I thought was important to talk about, and also what you guys wanted me to talk about. And I will probably put more depth into the things that I was asked quite a few times. So that's what we're going to do. Also, before we start, I do want to point out that one topic I won't be talking about is aftercare. Now, I was originally going to do this video as like a vlog over a few months. So I took footage of, you know, before I got my tattoo and how I was feeling and how I picked my tattoo artist, and even footage of when I was getting it done and, you know, the recovery and all that kind of stuff. But when I started showing some of that footage on my vlog channel, I noticed that a lot of people were starting to get really angry in the comments about, you shouldn't be doing this, you should be using this instead, my tattoo artist says this, we don't do that in Canada. And it kind of really annoyed me. It really irritated me. So I understand the different tattoo artists or different countries have different ways that they recommend that you look after tattoos. And I'm not going to tell you which one's correct because I don't think you should listen to me. I think you should listen to your tattoo artist that you've paid a decent amount of money. Hopefully they've got good experience, and you trust them with drawing on your body. So I believe you should trust them with how you should look after your tattoo. And I think it's really unfair. It's almost like people getting on the internet being like, how dare you use that medication? I don't think that medication's great. Your doctor's wrong. Look, none of your business. Listen to the professionals. And that's all I can say. If you trust your tattoo artist, you should listen to their instructions to a T on how to look after your tattoo. And also, if anything goes wrong, essentially you're going to be coming back to their insurance. So follow what your tattoo artist says. Don't listen to the anonymous people on the internet who says, I've got 3 small tattoos, listen to what I have to say. No, listen to your professional. So I'm not going to tell you what I did, and I'm not going to tell you what I recommend, because that's not what this video is about. All right, so one place I think we should start, I've had a lot of questions about how did I come up with the idea of the sleeve, and what was my inspiration, how long did I think about it for, how did I choose my tattoo artist, what was the process, how much input did they have, versus how much input did I have. And I thought that's an interesting place to start. I also want to address that this is a sleeve. A lot of people are like, why did you get so many tattoos at once? It's one really big tattoo. So I got one tattoo just over many sessions, and it's very big. So I will show you a close-up of my tattoo. Essentially what it is, it's like a collage of characters from the anime Full Metal Alchemist. Now, it seems very sort of superficial and stupid, but at the same time, I kind of like the idea of tattoos that aren't too meaningful and are more about the aesthetic, because I think that's what I'm more about. Like, I will be getting more meaningful tattoos down the track, but I kind of like the look of tattoos, and I particularly like the look of a sleeve, so that's why I decided the main tattoo that I always wanted in my life ever since I was little was a sleeve. So I decided that that will be my first tattoo. Now, I will say that that's probably not the best one to go for first, for many reasons, partly because I underestimated how long it would take. It's very long, it's very time consuming, it's very painful, it's very costly, and once you start you can't go back. So once you've got the outline on, you've just got to keep going with it. So, you know, in a way that was good because it forced me to continue. But I do recommend that if you've only ever had small tattoos, if you're looking at getting a sleeve, you might want to look at getting a bigger tattoo before, so you can see like what it involves, what the aftercare is going to be like, and it will give you a better idea of what you have to go through to get a sleeve. So, you know, I don't recommend it as being your first tattoo, but if you want one, you know, get one. You just have to really commit, and it's going to take a lot longer than you thought. So, yeah, I didn't realize that at the start, and if I could go back in time, I would probably get like a larger kind of smaller tattoo that you can do in 1 or 2 sessions before I got the full sleeve. But you know, the rest is history. It is what it is. So yeah, the way I came up with the design was not like super deep or meaningful. It's like a sleeve of anime characters from a show that I really, really liked, especially 10 years ago. Like I really, really loved this anime, and I thought I love the design of it. Like I love the look of the characters, and it's something that I could have on my arm. I've loved the anime for over 10 years, and I thought it's something I can look on my arm and like, it reminds me of something that brings me joy. And that's essentially what it was. I wanted something that I quite liked the aesthetics of, but also something that I knew meant something to me, even though it wasn't deep and meaningful, I think, if that makes sense. So originally I think I had a dream that I got a tattoo of a little symbol from Full Metal Alchemist, and I was like, yeah, I should really do that. And then I kind of thought about it, and I was like, oh, that could be fleshed out into a sleeve, and I've always wanted a sleeve. So that kind of idea sort of was stuck in my head. Now, I thought about that like 3 years ago, and for the longest time I put it off and put it off and put it off, partly because I didn't have much time. I was working a lot. I was in a professional industry, which I'll talk about a bit later on, and I was reluctant to get a sleeve. I just thought, you know, it's a lot of time and effort. It's a lot of research, and at the time I really didn't have the time to do that. So I did about, I would say 18 months ago, I did really look into tattoo artists in Melbourne that did a lot of like recreating comic books or anime or something like that, because my main focus was to get someone that could do the characters justice. So to me, in my head, I thought the biggest horrible thing that might come from picking the wrong tattoo artist is that I could want to get like Edward on my arm and then it not look like Edward and it just be really embarrassing. So I did a lot of research, and over a couple of days I was just saving, like I was following and saving all these tattoo artists' work, and I just didn't find someone that I was happy with, but I did stay following a few Instagram accounts and Facebook pages, and it was only at the start of the year, so probably over a year later, yeah, definitely over a year later, I was on Facebook and something popped up, and it was from this tattoo artist, Nicole, who actually happens to be quite local to me, and she did, I think, a Studio Ghibli design, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know I was following her, I'll look into it. And then I noticed that she did a lot of like Pokemon, a lot of like Simpsons characters, and then I saw that she did a sleeve outline for a Sailor Moon kind of sleeve, and I was like, okay, this is clearly something that she will potentially want to do and be interested in, and hopefully therefore will do well. So I contacted her straight away. This was at the start of the year, and she got back to me and she said, you know, pop in on the weekend and we can discuss it. Now at that time, for me, it was just a concept in my head, and so when I turned up I was like, really, like, fuck, what am I gonna say, what am I gonna do? And we kind of discussed it, but because there wasn't much of I hadn't fleshed out the concept, it was a bit like vague. So I ended up going off and collecting a bunch of images from characters that I really liked, and the sort of images that I liked of them, and I put them all in a Dropbox, and then I emailed them to her about a week later, and I said, these are the kind of characters that I want to incorporate, and I had a rough idea of where I wanted the characters to be. So I really like Alphonse, so I wanted him to be sort of prominent. and I wanted the State Alchemists and Winry to be like down here. So I didn't always have like the bad dudes like on my most visible part of my arm. And then of course you need one of the other main characters, Edward, to be a main kind of feature. So I wanted him up the top, and then I wanted some of the badder kind of things sort of like at the back. So I've got like Barry the Chopper, and you know, I've got a few of the bad guys. I wanted them to be easier to be covered because I don't want to be stuck with something that looks quite like mean on my forearm, even though like it looks pretty brutal as it is, so you know, whatever. So I had a rough idea, and then about a week later she contacted me. I popped in and she had some of the images sort of arranged in a photo, like with Photoshop for the placement, and I was like, yeah, like the placement. And then I think I gave her a week or something to draw it up, and then we started. So it was a bit like bam bam bam, and I was really apprehensive about it, but then I thought because it sort of just happened really quickly and really easily, I'll just go with it. So I did. So some people did want to know if it was my design or if it was my tattoo artist's design, and essentially I came to her with like a concept and then reference images, and the rest she did. So I had a little bit of input in it, so when it comes to like colors and a few things, but I kind of left it into her hands because I wasn't really sure about what I wanted, and I thought I will trust her. Looking back, I think if I had more experience with getting tattoos and knowing the design of tattoos, I would have changed a few things, but you know, in hindsight, you know, yeah, you'd change a lot of things in hindsight. So I will talk later on a little bit about what things I kind of would have changed and stuff. I'll talk about that later. So yeah, essentially I thought about it for a long time. I wanted a sleeve for probably 10 years now, and then 3 years ago I kind of had an idea of a design and I looked into it, and then a year later I actually contacted a tattoo artist. So it was like a long process. I didn't just jump in and be like, hi tattoo artist, what can we do today? So there was a lot of thought behind it. All right, so a lot of people wanted to know the process as well, like the nitty gritty, how many sessions, how much did it hurt, da 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 da. And I can tell you, yeah, it's a process. So I had, I believe, 8 sessions, and the longest session was definitely the outline. So the first thing I got done was the outline of all the characters. And the main reason why that was a longer session was because they've got the placement. They've got to, you know, put it on and then take it off and realign it. And there was a lot of like jiggling with the placement. That session didn't hurt and actually gave me a lot of like confidence about this is going to be a walk in the park, no problem. So that outline session did take a while. I think it took maybe 5 hours. I'm not too sure. Like the placement and the tattoos might have been about 5 hours. So the outline wasn't that painful. Maybe under the arm a little bit, there was a little bit of like stinging and there was a little bit of bruising, but overall the outline, yeah, it gave me a lot of confidence that this is going to be a walk in the park. Famous last words. Then my second session was this here, and then the color here, as well as another character, this one here. And that was probably the worst session, and that really kind of made me go, uh-oh, what the fuck did I get myself into? Now, let's talk about pain. I've got a pretty high pain threshold, and my tattoo artist did say that I sat like really well. I will link links to my tattoo artist down below if you want to see her stuff. But yeah, she said that I did sit really well. Like I never once like complained or whinged or bitched or cried, and a lot of people do. She said people have vomited, people have done some crazy shit because yeah, it's painful. It's essentially painful. So my most painful part by far, inner elbow. Inner elbow is fucked. It's fucked. And normally I'll be sitting there, no problem, and I'll be getting my tattoos done. And when you'd get to that part, I would be like, oh, yep, that's the part. That's the part. So, you know, I would never like be like, oh, complain, but I'd be like, yep, that one, yeah, that one hurts. So inner kind of nook of your elbow is the worst. The elbow itself, it hurts, but it's not as painful as the inner elbow. The inner elbow is just fucked. And so she started by doing my second session. She started by coloring in this red part, and then she went down and colored the inner, and it's very, very bold. I'm not sure if you can see. It's very, like, it's a block of color. So there was a lot of coloring in. There was a lot of kind of like, not going over the same spot, but there's a lot of like, it was very painful. I also found that because this part was so red and inflamed, it's like whenever she was moving down, she was tattooing onto like inflamed red skin, because yeah, it was just not good. That was the most painful part. And I remember I was sitting there and I was like clenching every muscle, and like my boyfriend was trying to talk to me, and I'm like, don't, like, he kept trying to like touch me to like pat me, and I was just like, don't, just please don't touch me. Like, yeah, it was not good. But then when she moved around to like this part, I was like, oh, now I can actually relax. Okay, so what's been happening? Like, I've just been sitting here for 2 hours and I haven't been able to say anything because it was very painful. So inner part, it's very tender. Outer part was fine. This part was fine. And then under here stings a bit. So I would liken, if you've never had a tattoo before, it's almost like someone's got a needle and they're just running it over your skin, like slightly scratching it, but not like anything super deep. Like, it's just running a needle over your skin. But there are some parts that really, really sting, and there are some parts that just, you can feel it a lot more. Other parts like this, like on your outer part of your arm, no problem, no problem. So pain, it would definitely be like, you know, maybe a 1 here, but then it goes to like a 10 here. This might be a 7, and then this might be a 7 as well, or 6 or 5, whatever it is. This would be like a 4 or a 3. So depending on the area of your arm, it feels very different, and it hurts in different spots. And I am aware because I got the whole bloody thing tattooed. Smart move. So yeah, 8 sessions in total. Outline, I got the inner part done. I got that one done a week later, because essentially the rule of thumb was that you can wait like 2 weeks if you're tattooing over a similar or a part that's close to one that's just previously been tattooed, but you know, wait a week if you want to do another area. So we kind of like jumped from like bottom to top, and it was, you know, every week or 2 or 3 that I was getting tattooed. So the length of time that each session was, the first one was definitely the longest because there was all the placement of the stencils, but then each other session went anywhere from about 2 to 4 hours, depending on what we were doing. And a few people have asked who determines the length of the sessions, and essentially, well, it depends on what you book. So sometimes I'd book a full day or a half a day, and that would sort of determine how much you can kind of get done. But we often did have a goal, like we might be like, oh, we're trying to get this, and you know, something else done in one session. And depending on the area, like how painful it was or how detailed the character was, we would sort of look at the time after each character or after a couple of characters, and once it kind of hit the 2 or 3 hour mark, we'd kind of go, do we want to continue or do you want to stop? And you know, we might continue if there's a smaller character we can do, but it was sort of like a joint thing, like how I was feeling, how she was feeling, you know, it was a mutual understanding. In regard to the cost, it was like an hourly basis. So your tattoo artist, based on their experience, mine has about 10 years experience, they will charge a different amount. They will quote you like a certain price for smaller tattoos, but for larger tattoos, they do it per hour. And my tattoo artist was $180 per hour, but she only charged for the time that she was tattooing. So her tattoo machine had like a timer on it. So if she wasn't actually tattooing, she wasn't charging for the time. So even though I might be there for like 3 hours, it might only be 2 hours of tattooing or something like that. So yeah, definitely ends up being quite costly. And I also thought in my head, oh, this might only be like 4 sessions. No, it ends up being 8 sessions. So it is definitely worth If you're thinking about getting one, trust me, it's a lot more pain, it's a lot more recovery, it's a lot more costly, time consuming than you would have originally thought, unless you're quite experienced with getting tattoos. It's a big commitment. So even though I said I'm not going to talk about aftercare, I do want to talk about my experience with healing, because getting the tattoo is painful, but dealing with the aftermath of the tattoo is just as painful and annoying, if not more painful. Now, if you're not used to tattoos, they bleed, they're weepy, they're disgusting. Essentially, your skin that's been tattooed turns into a big, like, wound. So, for example, the worst recovery was a fuck up, but I'll talk about that in a sec. The most aggravated my skin was this inner part here, this sort of inner forearm part, and that ballooned up. I couldn't even bend my elbow. It was so swollen and hot, and it was just weeping constantly. It's really disgusting, and it was like that for quite a few days, and then of course it starts to peel, and it's not like super itchy, but it's just a little bit itchy for probably a good week, maybe even 2 weeks. So you're looking at a recovery time of 2 weeks, and the first few days is very painful. Now, I did figure out ways to minimize that pain. One is definitely, taking painkillers. Don't take like Nurofen before, or a blood thinner before you get your tattooing done. You can take painkillers. I was finding I was taking Panadol and stuff, and it numbs the pain a little bit when it's happening, but don't take like blood thinners before, because you can bleed a lot more, and you do bleed a lot during tattooing. Like they'll do a part, like I remember I'd look at her face, I'd do like Nicole, my tattoo artist, and then she would stop to get another color, and I'd look at it and it would just be red, because it's just blood. There's a lot of blood and goopiness. It's a lot of trauma to the skin, which takes a lot of recovery, and it's very uncomfortable. Now, what happened was, and this is where I like to say you have to follow the instructions of your tattoo artist. They're responsible for what happened to your arm. The only time I sort of went against my tattoo artist's instructions was when I ran out of the Bepanthen that I was using, and another tattoo artist said to use this other balm thing. Now, I used that and my skin responded really, really badly. Now, it was on this part, and that was horrible. It was red raw for nearly a full week. It was so painful. It was throbbing. I had to like lift my arm up to stop the throbbing. I was pretty much just taking Nurofen Plus the whole time, and it was horrible. So my reaction to that cream, it wasn't an infection, because the area that was inflamed wasn't spreading outside the tattoo line. It was just that the irritated skin was really inflamed, and it was really, really painful. It was very different to a normal recovery process. So that area ended up being a lot more red than it needed to be, because of the fuck up, essentially. But I had to go to the chemist and get a really strong antihistamine, which helped reduce some of the swelling, and it ended up recovering, but it took a good week longer than it should have, and it was really, really painful. But through that process, I did discover that if you're getting a tattoo, antihistamines are great, because some of the swelling that happens after you get a tattoo the ooziness and the disgustingness, that can be more painful and irritating than the actual tattoo itself. So what I did after this part, I had a few sessions to go. Whenever I had my tattoo session, 2 nights after I had it done, I would always take antihistamines before I went to bed, and I'd wake up the next day and the swelling was a fraction. The goopiness was a fraction of what it was at the start. So antihistamines are great to keep it from swelling up and like oozing all the time. So yeah, I definitely think that painkillers help the pain, antihistamines reduce some of the swelling and the ooziness, and after I figured out that combination, it was a lot easier to recover from the tattooing, but I had to learn it the hard way by having a reaction, which was because I went against my tattooer's instructions. So don't do that. Another thing that I learned towards the end, which I wish I learned earlier, was the best thing to use to kind of like a few days after you've had your tattoo, get like stretchy, comfortable, long tops. Now I had a few of these and I sort of wish I had more, and I wish I figured this out earlier, because if you can just put a lot of like moisturizer on your arm and then put on a stretchy, comfortable top, it keeps it like contained. Things doesn't stick to it. It like things, you don't knock it. It's a really, really good way to sort of protect your tattoo. And especially if you're going to bed, it's a really great way to sleep with just a really comfortable but stretchy sort of firm top. That was just, even if you've got it wrapped up and you've got the top over it, it means that the wrapping doesn't sort of like fall off and catch and all that kind of stuff. Another thing that I learned with tattooing is that I'm allergic to tapes, which was annoying. And I ended up getting like wounds on my shoulders from taping. Anyway, that was annoying as well. I learned a lot of things. So yeah, I definitely learned that the first few days after getting a tattoo is probably more painful and annoying than actually getting the tattoo. Definitely follow your tattoo artist's instructions. It takes a good 2 weeks to fully heal from a tattoo, and painkillers are good afterwards. Some are good before, but not all. Antihistamines are great for reducing swelling and the ooziness. And yeah, it's not a nice experience. It's not a nice experience. All right, so now that I've had the tattoo, the main questions that I've had since getting it is, like, have people treated you any differently, and how do you go at work? And the work thing is something that most people are asking me. That's what is on most people's minds. As a background, I do YouTube most of the time, so I work from home. Not this channel, another channel. And I work 2 days a week as a lawyer. And before I got my tattoo, I was a full-time lawyer, and I can understand how people like, how does this work in your work kind of thing. Now, it's been kind of strange because a lot of people just presume that I turn up to work like this, and I'm like, hi work colleagues, how's it going? I don't. Some of my work colleagues that I'll go to lunch with and have drinks with and catch up on the weekend know that I've got a tattoo. They've seen it, they saw the start of it, and they've kind of seen it progress. But my bosses don't know I have a tattoo, and I kind of like that. I think it's none of their business. I think that like my bosses are like old dudes that are very professional, and I don't see the point of rocking the boat by turning up in a short sleeve dress and being like, hey crew, what's up? I think that's sort of like disrespectful, and I got my tattoo knowing that it's my tattoo, but it's not everyone's choice. So in a lot of situations, I wear long sleeves, I wear cardigans. I did go out and buy a lot of long sleeve blouses for work, a lot of like light cardigans for work, and for some family events, for some professional events, and for work, I cover up. And that's partly because I respect people's choices in not having to see my tattoo if they don't like my tattoo, but I also respect my privacy. So yeah, it's partly respect, but also partly that for my privacy, I don't want to show everyone. It's not their business. So yeah, a lot of people were asking how people respond at work, and people at work don't know generally, and I'm happy that they don't know. It is very easy if you're in like an office setting to cover up a sleeve, but you just have to be aware that you have to get long sleeve blouses or shirts, or find cardigans that are like comfortable enough to wear all day without taking them off if you're going to wear short sleeves. So I haven't had a problem with it, but once again, I don't work full time, and I sort of decided to get this tattoo after I went part-time at work, knowing that it's going to take a long time to do and plan, but also I don't necessarily want to wear cardigans and blouses every single day just to cover it. So it's a personal choice, but they can't discriminate against me if they found out that I had a tattoo, as long as I cover it. But if I'm working in a law firm and I'm going to a meeting and I've got my tattoo out, I can understand why it offends people, and I respect that. So it hasn't been an issue for me, but you have to be mindful of other people when you do get tattoos, that it's not appropriate in every setting. Like, I wouldn't go to a funeral wearing a black singlet. I'd wear a black blazer because it's not appropriate. So, you know, you have to be mindful of that when you go into it. So yeah, I definitely don't think having a tattoo has stopped me from progressing in a field that I'm in, because I've been very successful at them not knowing that I've got a tattoo, but at the same time, it's not an area that I'm very serious about, and I'm starting to back out of that field. So I sort of got the tattoo at the time where I knew that I was sort of done with that area, and I wanted to try something else that was a lot more creative, and I can start doing things like getting a sleeve without feeling like that it's going to impact my career, if that makes sense. And when it comes to judgment of other people, to be honest, I sort of walk around in a bit of a bubble. I don't pay attention to what other people think about me. I have noticed a few people look, but I also live in an area that is really, that a lot of people have tattoos. Like, I went out for breakfast the other day and I was like, wow, like half the people here have sleeves. So it's not as if it's, where I live, it's not a big deal, but you do get some people looking. I've had a few people ask me about it, but it's generally people that like Full Metal Alchemist and are like, oh wow, can I have a look? So I haven't had any like negative verbal things yet, but you know, I'm sure it'll happen. I'm sure it'll happen. Okay, and then the few last questions that I've had is, would I get any more tattoos? And the answer is yes, I would definitely love to get more tattoos. I'm looking forward to getting smaller tattoos that can be finished in 1 or 2 sessions. Like, that just sounds amazing to me because this took so long. But right now I feel really lopsided. I feel like there's so much ink here and the rest of me is so bare that I do definitely want to get more tattoos. I've got a few in mind. I want to get a tattoo of my cat, probably on my foot, and a few people have asked would I go to the same tattoo artist or other ones. The tattoo artist that I went to, she does really good sort of cartoon style portraits of cats, so I'd go back to her for that, and if there's anything that I think fit her style, I would go back to her. But there's a few other things, like some lettering things that I want to get done, that I would go to other people, because she doesn't specialize in lettering. It is what it is. So I definitely want to get more tattoos, and a few people have asked, would I get another sleeve? And the answer is no, but I made a conscious decision to get the sleeve on this arm, because since I do beauty videos, I need this part to swatch. So whatever I do, I'll keep that inner part of my arm free, but you know, this is free reign. I'm going to put some like wording and a few like lettering things, and I would love to do something a bit more feminine on my shoulder down the track. So yeah, I'm definitely going to get more tattoos, but a sleeve is not going to happen. It's a lot of commitment, and I don't want to cover this part of my arm for YouTube reasons. People have also asked me if I would get more anime inspired things, or people say they weren't aware that I was so into anime. And there's one anime thing that I'd potentially get in the future that's a lot smaller. But one other reason why I want to get a lot more tattoos is because I don't want people to pigeonhole me as being like an anime fanatic, because I'm not. I just really like the design of these characters, and these characters meant something to me. But I'm not one of those fanatics that watch all the anime and know everything. And so I want to sort of balance that out a lot with other things, so people don't just go, oh, she must be crazy anime because she's got one tattoo of an anime show. So yeah, there's a few reasons why I want to get a bunch of tattoos, but I'm definitely going to get more. I'm just thinking that since I spent the last 5 months getting frequent sessions of these tattoos, I think I'll put off getting more tattoos until maybe next year, but it's definitely going to happen. I also had a question from Glass. I'm going to address this one specifically. He asked if I noticed that anything had faded. Well, I've only had this for only for a few months now. So nothing's faded, but when you first get it done, it looks a lot more intense. So it's a lot fresher and a lot brighter. And then when you shed that skin, it does look dull. So, or not super dull, but it dulls down a little bit. So yeah, I haven't noticed anything fading from when it's been fully healed, if that makes sense. All right, and then a few people have asked, would I have changed anything, and how do I feel about it now that it's done? And to be honest, it's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently. I would have changed a lot of things, but at the same time, all those things required a lot of hindsight that I didn't have at the time. So, for example, I think some of the colors kind of don't work together very well. So, like these all sort of blend in together. I really like the contrast of the colors up here. But you see that like there's purple on purple and a few things like that. So there's a few placement things that I would have probably changed around, and I would have chosen the background colors a bit differently. I am sort of regretting getting the purple down here. I really prefer this turquoise, but the reason why we didn't continue the turquoise down was because there's a lot of blue down here. So having colorful characters, it did restrict what colors we could put in the background because, you know, there's a lot of blue, so it doesn't work with blue. I had a bunch of like red symbols, so red didn't work. So I kind of regret a little bit some of the color choices or the placement of the characters. I wish in hindsight I had enough knowledge about designing tattoos that I would have chosen characters that had similar colors, so then you can offset the background a bit better. So to me, it looks a little bit jumbled and a little bit muddy in some areas. So I definitely would have changed that. Also, I love this part that's got the cat there, like that's colored like my cat. But this part just looks like a lump. So I would have preferred to have put some other like little cats or animals in there as well. So when you can see that peeking out of a sleeve, like a cardigan or a jacket, you could see something cute. So there's a few things that I would have changed, but I didn't know it at the time, and you know, what can you do? Hindsight's a lovely thing. And when it comes to the full tattoo, like, do I regret getting a full sleeve? It's funny because I'm still coming to terms with the fact that I have a fully colored arm. And I do think that when I get other tattoos, it kind of looks like it works together. I would feel more confident about it. But right now, I feel like it does look a little bit out of place and I'm still getting used to it. Do I regret getting it? No, because I always wanted to get a sleeve. Some parts of me are like, oh, maybe I should have got a 3/4 sleeve. But then if I got a 3/4 sleeve, I would have been like, damn it, I wish I got a full sleeve. Like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I think the thing is that you just have to kind of persist with it. And, you know, we tweaked a few things along the way. But if I could go back now knowing what I know, I probably would have designed it a lot differently. Also partly because this is so bold. There is so much block color here that it took a long time, and it looks really, really bold. When you look at some other people's sleeves, they've got a lot of shading and a lot of skin color coming through. And I understand that it's a less hassle. It looks a lot more sort of organic, and there's part of me that would have been like, okay, I wish I could have designed it in such a way that it wasn't as bold. But I wanted it bold at the start because the characters are bold. So yeah, it's really hard. So yeah, would I have changed things? Yes. At the time, did I know what to change? No. Do I still know how you can possibly make like an anime sleeve with bold characters more subtle? No. So, you know, it is what it is. It's unique, it's colorful. I wanted it colorful. So yeah, I just think I'm gonna create like this arm will probably be like a softer sort of, probably more black and white and probably a lot more feminine to kind of even out the fact that I've got a bold kind of color block on this arm. So yeah, I know that was long, but it's been 5 months in the making, and I know a lot of people had a lot of questions. So that was just my story of my first tattoo that happened to be a sleeve. So yeah, hopefully that was interesting. If you've got any more questions, feel free to leave them down below. But hopefully I answered most of them. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. And if you enjoyed this long-winded video, definitely give it a thumbs up and have a great day. Bye.